I first met Felicia at a college party, back when the music was too loud and the drinks too strong, and everyone was still stumbling through the initial taste of adult freedom. She was dancing in the living room with a small group of friends, her hair swinging in tandem with the beat, her laughter rising above the chaotic chatter. When our eyes happened to lock, she gave me a smile that seemed to reach across the room and pull me in. I'm not usually the type to approach strangers, but in that moment, everything else faded. I elbowed my way through the crowd and introduced myself, feeling both foolish and electrified. We chatted, if you can call it chatting when the bass is thumping through your chest, and discovered we were both studying at the same university, majoring in fields that, at first glance, appeared incompatible. She was a business major, fascinated by entrepreneurship and big ambitions. I was an English major, dreaming of writing novels that would hopefully pay the bills. She teased me about the cliché of the starving artist, while I teased her about the suits she'd have to wear after graduation. But we shared an immediate spark that night, an unspoken sense that our differences might be oddly complementary. By the party's end, we exchanged phone numbers. I remember watching her leave, feeling a strange mixture of hope and nervous energy surging in my veins. We texted back and forth for weeks. She was easy to talk to, quick with witty replies, and surprisingly honest about her aspirations. I told her about the short stories I wrote in my spare time and how I was building toward a bigger project, a novel that sat half-finished on my laptop, lacking only an organized storyline. She told me about her dream of creating her own clothing line, one that would combine her love for fashion with ethical production methods. I was impressed, but also slightly intimidated. Felicia was the kind of person who mapped out her life in bullet points, eyes fixed on success. I, on the other hand, was more of a daydreamer, satisfied to scribble random story ideas at odd hours. Still, we clicked. Our conversation stretched late into the night, our text logs peppered with jokes and moments of genuine vulnerability. It felt like we were forging a real bond. After about a month of what felt like daily communication, we decided to meet outside of campus. She suggested a small, cozy cafe near the old library. When I arrived, she was already seated in a booth by the window, sipping a latte and tapping her nails on the table's surface. I sat across from her, noticing how different she looked in the daylight, more refined, carefully put together. But the sparkle in her eyes remained, the same one that had drawn me to her at the party. We talked easily, ordering pastries, moving from topic to topic without hesitation. At one point, she reached over and flicked a crumb off my shirt with a playful grin. The moment felt intimate. By the end of that first date, I was convinced something special was unfolding. We continued seeing each other, not officially labeling it as boyfriend-girlfriend but clearly more than friends. Sometimes she'd invite me to her study sessions, claiming my presence motivated her. Often, we'd end up chatting for hours and cramming our actual work into the final minutes. Other times, we'd sit on the campus lawn, with me reading passages from my writing while she offered her straightforward critiques. She didn't hold back when something felt off. She'd say, "This character's motivation doesn't make sense," or, "I don't understand why he'd do that." At first, her bluntness stung my pride, but gradually I came to respect it. She had a way of cutting through nonsense, pinpointing precisely where improvements were needed. In return, I gave her feedback on the designs she sketched for her classes. She'd open her laptop, showing me outfits that combined sleek lines with ethical materials. I'd offer opinions on color combinations, even though my sense of style was minimal at best. These exchanges became our trademark, a sense that we were both forging our futures, side by side, cheering each other on. As the semester drew to a close, Felicia started getting busier. She had a part-time internship at a marketing firm downtown, which took up a chunk of her schedule. Meanwhile, I was knee-deep in exams and final projects. Our time together became sporadic, stolen between classes or late nights. The changes worried me a bit. She seemed more distant, more wrapped up in her own world, but I told myself it was just the stress of our respective workloads. She still texted me sweet messages occasionally, telling me she missed me or that she couldn't wait to catch up. I brushed aside any nagging doubts, convinced we'd soon be back to our usual closeness once the school year ended. One day, Felicia invited me to a gathering her friend was hosting. It wasn't exactly a party, more like a networking event for business students, complete with name tags, flyers, and a couple of local industry guests who were there to answer questions. When I arrived, feeling out of place in my casual attire, Felicia rushed over, looking both excited and anxious. She introduced me to her classmates, glancing around as if she was waiting for someone important to show up. I tried my best to mingle, but all the business talk about market analyses and growth projections left me lost. I lingered near the snack table, munching on tiny crackers, while Felicia talked in a small circle of well-dressed students. Occasionally, she'd throw me a glance and a half-smile, but it felt like she was preoccupied by something else. I left that night with a gnawing sense of unease. On the drive home, I wondered if I was truly part of her life plan, or just a temporary interest. Nevertheless, Felicia continued to present herself as affectionate. She'd call me at odd hours, apologizing for being so busy, promising that things would calm down soon. I believed her. I even wrote a short piece inspired by her drive and ambition, showing it to her one evening in my apartment. She read it, her eyes flicking over each sentence. Then she set it aside, a soft smile on her lips, and told me she appreciated how I saw her. That night, she stayed over, and for a few sweet hours, I forgot all about the distance I'd been sensing. Summer arrived, and we both found ourselves in more stable routines. I worked as a tutor on campus, helping incoming freshmen brush up on writing and literature skills, while Felicia continued her internship. We settled into an almost domestic pattern. She'd swing by my apartment after work, we'd eat dinner, watch something on Netflix, then either study or crash. Sometimes she'd mention her internship's senior associate, a guy named Logan who was apparently a rising star in marketing. She seemed impressed by him, which didn't bother me at first. But as the weeks wore on, she mentioned him more often, praising his talents, his achievements, his stylish suits. My chest tightened whenever his name came up, though I tried to mask my discomfort behind forced interest. Felicia's eyes would sparkle when she described his business acumen, and I couldn't help but feel overshadowed by this apparently flawless figure. One Sunday afternoon, Felicia told me she had to attend an out-of-town seminar with her boss and a couple of co-workers, including Logan. She explained it was an important opportunity, a chance to network and possibly land a better position after graduation. I plastered on a supportive smile, trying to quell the unease swirling in my gut. I told her to have a great time, to impress everyone there. She thanked me, gave me a quick kiss, and hopped into a cab. Later that week, she sent sporadic texts, mostly updates about the seminar schedule. Once, she mentioned that Logan had given an impressive talk on branding strategies. I responded with positivity, even though my mind conjured images of them having private dinners, forging connections that I couldn't hope to understand. By the time she returned, I tried to push my jealous thoughts aside. She was with me, wasn't she? That had to mean something. Toward the end of the summer, Felicia's birthday was approaching. I spent days thinking about the perfect gift, something meaningful but also reflective of our bond. I settled on a custom journal embossed with her initials, filled with blank pages for her to record her business ideas, sketches, or any random thoughts. I even taped a small note inside the cover, for all the adventures we've yet to take. When I handed it to her on the morning of her birthday, her face lit up in delight. She flipped through the empty pages, then hugged me, whispering that it was perfect. That evening, she had a birthday party planned at a trendy lounge downtown. I went with her, eager to celebrate. The place was full of her friends, co-workers, and classmates. The music was loud, the drinks were colorful, and Felicia glowed in a sleek black dress. She introduced me around, though it felt more like cursory acknowledgments while she flitted from group to group. In the crowd, I spotted Logan, who turned out to be tall, polished, and exuding confidence. He caught my eye and gave a polite nod, but mostly stuck to Felicia's side as they chatted with various guests. Halfway through the party, I excused myself to get some air. The lounge was packed, and I needed a breather. Stepping onto the rooftop terrace, I leaned over the railing, taking in the city lights. That's when I heard murmured voices from the other side of the terrace. I recognized Felicia's voice immediately. She was talking to a friend of hers, a woman named Jenna, who I'd met briefly earlier that evening. My initial thought was to step away and give them privacy, but something in their tone made me pause. Felicia sounded distressed, or maybe just conflicted. As quietly as possible, I moved closer to the potted plants that separated us, curiosity and dread swirling within me. "I'm telling you," Felicia said, her voice lowered. "Logan's basically the perfect match for where I want to be in a couple of years. He's got the connections, the success, the vision. If he were single, I'd be all over that in a heartbeat." My stomach dropped. A wave of nausea hit me, but I forced myself to remain still. Then Jenna asked about me. Felicia's reply was casual, stinging, "Oh, he's nice, super sweet. But I don't know if he fits into the bigger picture, you know? He's more of a... I guess you could call him a backup plan. I mean, if things don't work out with Logan or with my career the way I want, at least I know he's there. He adores me, so it's kind of a safety net." My heart hammered so hard I was sure they'd hear it. Part of me wanted to barge out and confront her, but shock anchored me in place. I felt humiliated, like all the air had been sucked from my lungs. Felicia, the person I'd grown to trust and care for deeply, was describing me as her backup plan, someone to fall back on if her grander ambitions didn't pan out. Worse still, she was entertaining the idea of moving toward Logan if she got the chance. Tears of anger pricked at my eyes. I struggled to keep my breathing quiet as Felicia went on, explaining to Jenna how she had to be strategic in her relationships, just like in business. "You have to think 5 steps ahead," she said. "And you can't get too tied down to someone who might not help you grow." My chest burned. A swirl of rage and heartbreak wrestled inside me. I wanted to storm off, but another part of me craved to hear every syllable. Eventually, Jenna coughed uncomfortably and said, "That seems a bit cold, Felicia." "What about his feelings?" Felicia sighed. "He'll be fine. He's strong enough to handle it, or he'll move on. But for now, he's someone I can keep around. I do like him, just maybe not as much as he likes me." The words felt like knives. When footsteps approached, I quickly backed away, slipping around the corner to avoid being spotted. Felicia and Jenna left the terrace, oblivious to my presence. I stood there, breathing hard, trying to process what I'd just heard. For a few minutes, I considered walking away silently, letting Felicia's remark fester in the darkness of my own mind. But then something inside me snapped. The quiet, understanding side of me was overshadowed by a fierce need to expose her duplicity. If I simply vanished, she'd continue smearing me as her lesser option while flirting with Logan or any other convenient stepping stone. I felt a surge of righteous indignation. I deserved better, and at the very least, her circle of friends, my circle, too, in some ways, needed to know the truth. I wandered back into the lounge, weaving through the crowd until I spotted Felicia and Jenna by the bar, talking to a few people. My stomach knotted, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I took a deep breath and approached. Felicia looked up with a smile, but her expression wavered when she saw the intensity in my eyes. I forced a polite greeting, then addressed Jenna. "Hey, can I borrow Felicia for just a second? There's something I'd like everyone here to hear." My voice was calm, but an undercurrent of anger rippled beneath it. Felicia's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across her face. She stepped closer to me. "What's going on?" she asked, half laughing, probably hoping I was about to announce a sweet gesture of affection. Instead, I cleared my throat and raised my voice so the nearby group could hear, making it clear I wanted an audience. "I just overheard something interesting," I began, scanning the group. Felicia's eyes widened, a hint of fear creeping in. I continued, "It seems that our birthday girl has been telling people I'm her backup plan, someone to keep on standby in case her real ambitions don't work out." At that, a hush fell over the small group. A wave of whispered shock spread among them. Felicia's mouth hung open, her face draining of color. I didn't let her interrupt, pressing on with a tone that trembled from betrayal. "Apparently, I'm the nice, sweet option she'll settle for only if she can't land someone more suitable to her big dreams. Good to know how highly she thinks of me." Felicia stammered, stepping forward, hands raised as if to hush me. "Wait, that was just talk. I didn't mean," but I refused to let her spin the situation. "Don't lie," I shot back. "I heard every word you said on the rooftop. You said you're interested in Logan or someone like him, that I'm just a safety net. You basically called me your insurance policy. So let's make sure everyone here, including Logan, knows where we all stand." I pivoted to face Logan, who stood nearby with a stunned expression. "She's been eyeing you, man. You might want to watch your back. Because if she's talking about me like this, you can only imagine what she might be saying about you behind closed doors." Logan looked mortified, glancing quickly at Felicia. She tried to interject, stumbling over words, "It's not, I never meant, you're misinterpreting." But the tension in the air was palpable. A few people started whispering to each other, while others simply stared, wide-eyed. Some were Felicia's close friends, but even they seemed uncertain how to defend her. I took a shaky breath, my anger devolving into a hollow sense of relief. I'd done what I came to do, expose her cruelty. The hush that followed felt almost suffocating. Felicia finally found her voice. "This is a misunderstanding," she insisted, turning in a circle as though seeking backup from the onlookers. "I was just venting. I don't really see you as a backup plan. I'm sorry if it came out wrong." Her eyes flicked to me, desperate. I stood there, arms crossed, silently daring her to keep lying. Her friend Jenna looked deeply uncomfortable, presumably recalling their private conversation. I spoke again, my voice calmer but tinted with finality. "You said exactly what you meant, Felicia. And you know what? I'm not going to be anyone's second choice. Not yours, not Logan's, not anyone's. If you can't respect me enough to see me as an equal or as someone worthy of genuine commitment, then we have nothing left to say to each other." She tried to grasp my arm, but I stepped away. In that charged atmosphere, with half the lounge now aware something dramatic was happening, I glanced around at the stunned faces. My gaze fell on Logan, who looked like he'd much rather be anywhere else. Then I spotted Jenna, who wore an expression of pity and shame. I squared my shoulders, letting out a long, shaky breath. "Happy birthday, Felicia," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Then I turned and walked out, not waiting for her response. The adrenaline was still surging as I made my way to the elevator, ignoring the curious stares of other patrons who'd missed the confrontation but sensed the tension. The moment I stepped onto the street, I felt a flood of emotions crash over me: anger, betrayal, humiliation. I fumbled with my phone, unsure whether to call a friend for a ride or just walk off the adrenaline. In the end, I texted my closest friend, Jake, simply saying, "You won't believe what just happened. Need to talk." Then I started walking, the cool night air helping me calm down. Felicia tried calling me multiple times, but I let it ring. I had no desire to hear more excuses or pleas. I couldn't erase the memory of her telling Jenna I was just a fallback plan, like a spare tire you keep in the trunk. The sense of betrayal cut deep, especially since I'd truly believed we had a real future together. Jake picked me up near a closed coffee shop about half an hour later. I recounted the entire ordeal, my voice trembling with residual anger. He shook his head, cursing under his breath. "Man, that's rough," he said, his eyes darting between me and the road. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." I felt a tightness in my chest, a swirl of self-doubt rising to the surface. Felicia's words had insinuated that I was lesser, incompetent to keep up with her grand ambitions. Jake, sensing my distress, put a hand on my shoulder at a red light. "Listen, you're talented, you're caring, and you've got your own path. If she can't see the value in that, it's her problem, not yours." Over the next few days, Felicia bombarded me with messages and calls. Some were apologetic, begging for a chance to explain. Others sounded frustrated, accusing me of blowing things out of proportion. I read a couple of her texts. One said, "I didn't mean any of it literally. I was just talking nonsense with Jenna." Another read, "You know how stressed I was. Sometimes I say things without thinking." But I remembered her voice that night, firm, measured, confident in her strategy. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a window into how she truly viewed me. Eventually, I blocked her number. I wanted no part of her attempts to rewrite the narrative. Word of the confrontation spread through our mutual circles. Some people reached out to me, expressing shock or support. A few took Felicia's side, claiming I'd humiliated her on her birthday, that I'd made a private misunderstanding public. But I refused to shoulder that blame. If she hadn't demeaned me, there would have been nothing to expose. I might have felt a twinge of guilt if I hadn't overheard her explicitly calling me her backup plan. Over time, though, the gossip died down, and life moved on. Felicia remained a presence at the university, but I rarely saw her in person. When we did pass each other, we locked eyes for a second, then looked away. That fall, I threw myself into writing. The emotional turmoil served as an unwelcome but potent inspiration. I wrote about heartbreak, about illusions shattering under harsh light, about discovering one's self-worth in the face of betrayal. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered, and for the first time, I felt genuine momentum in my creative process. My friends noticed how driven I'd become. "At least something positive came out of that fiasco," Jake remarked one afternoon, reading a snippet of my new work. I shrugged, not entirely sure whether to thank Felicia for fueling my creativity or resent her for it. Perhaps both. Occasionally, I received random updates about Felicia, that she was excelling in her internship, that she might move into a full-time role, that Logan had apparently gotten engaged to someone else. The news of Logan's engagement made me wonder how Felicia felt. Was she disappointed that he was no longer an option? Did she regret discarding me in favor of a fantasy that never materialized? I tried not to dwell on it, reminding myself that her emotions were no longer my concern. As time went on, I found myself healing. The sting of betrayal dulled to a faint scar. I finished my novel, a modest but significant accomplishment, and submitted it to a few publishers. Surprisingly, one small independent press expressed interest. Over a series of emails and phone calls, they offered to help me refine the manuscript. Their encouragement felt like a dream. I shared the news with Jake, who congratulated me enthusiastically, telling me this could be the start of my writing career. And he was right. A few months later, I officially signed with that press. My novel was slated for release the following year. In my heart, I wished I had someone special to share the accomplishment with, but I understood I had to be comfortable celebrating my achievements on my own. That was part of growing, of standing on my own feet. Near the end of my final year at the university, I walked into the campus coffee shop for a quick caffeine fix. I spotted Felicia seated at a corner table, laptop open, multiple documents spread around. She looked up as I approached the counter. Our eyes met, and an awkward tension settled in the air. She offered a tentative smile, as if testing whether I'd snub her. Despite my lingering wariness, I gave a polite nod, then focused on ordering my coffee. Before I could leave, she stood up and walked over, her expression uncertain. "Hey," she said quietly. "Long time no see." I nodded, gripping my coffee cup. "Yeah, it's been a while," I replied. There was a strained pause, her eyes flicking to the floor. "Listen," she began. "I know there's a lot of bad blood between us. I just wanted to say congratulations on your book deal. I heard about it from some mutual friends." Her voice was subdued, lacking the usual confidence. I blinked, taken aback. "Thanks," I managed, unsure how else to respond. She bit her lip, then confessed, "I read a portion of your manuscript online. Someone mentioned you posted an excerpt. It's really good. It's powerful. You've come a long way." Part of me wanted to walk away. Another part felt a twinge of satisfaction, a sense that I'd proven her wrong about my potential. She searched my face, perhaps hoping for a sign of forgiveness. I offered a polite smile but didn't delve into pleasantries. "I appreciate that. I worked hard on it," I said. She nodded, her eyes glimmering with what might have been regret. "I won't keep you," she murmured. "I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry, truly. And I'm happy for you. You deserve the success." For a moment, old emotions threatened to resurface: anger, hurt, longing, confusion. But the raw pain had settled into a calmer acceptance over time. "Thank you," I replied softly. Then, with a half-wave, I turned and walked out, leaving her by the coffee counter. My heart pounded, but the turmoil didn't cling as it once had. The apology was too late to salvage anything between us, but it might have been a step toward closure. Stepping outside, I let the brisk air fill my lungs. In that moment, I realized something: I no longer needed her validation. The person I had become, resilient, determined, carving my own path, was enough. If Felicia truly regretted her actions, then that was her burden to carry. Mine was to keep moving forward. Graduation came and went. I crossed the stage, receiving my degree in English literature. My parents cheered from the stands, proud tears in their eyes. Jake was there too, snapping photos on his phone. I didn't see Felicia in the crowd, though I assumed she was somewhere with her business cohorts. After the ceremony, we all spilled onto the lawn, hugging friends, snapping more pictures. That sense of excitement for the future buzzed in the air. As I roamed among the throngs of graduates, I realized that the heartbreak Felicia caused was just one chapter in my life. There would be many more chapters, and I was in control of how they unfolded. I eventually relocated to a different city to promote my book, doing small readings at local bookstores. The pay was modest, but the experience was invigorating. Meeting readers who connected with my characters felt like a dream come true. The relationships that ended up forming, both friendships and brief romances, helped me see new perspectives. I shared apartments with fellow creatives, forging a community that thrived on art, music, and late-night brainstorming sessions. I still had moments of self-doubt, days when I worried whether my writing career could sustain me long-term. But I was chasing my passion on my own terms, no longer fearful of measuring up to someone else's blueprint for success. A couple of years passed, and in that time, I heard little about Felicia. Rumor had it she moved to a bigger city, climbing the corporate ladder in fashion marketing, exactly as she'd planned. Occasionally, I'd scroll through social media, seeing glimpses of her life, photos at professional events, posts about the companies she was partnering with. She seemed to be doing well, forging ahead in her chosen field, and I felt neither jealousy nor regret. We had parted ways, and that was how it needed to be. Once, I noticed she'd liked a promotional post about my upcoming sequel, but she never commented or reached out. I guessed we both understood we belonged to separate narratives now. The biggest validation came a year after my novel's release. I was invited to a modest literary award ceremony where my book was nominated in the category of Best Debut. I didn't expect to win, given the fierce competition, but I attended anyway, thrilled just to be recognized. Sitting in the banquet hall, wearing an ill-fitting suit, I felt a rush of gratitude. I thought of how far I'd come since those university days, since that humiliating birthday party showdown. When they announced my name as the winner, my cheeks burned with disbelief. I stumbled up to the stage, stammering my thanks into the microphone. In the audience, I spotted my publisher beaming, and beside him, Jake clapping enthusiastically. The applause was a blur. For a split second, I felt a pang of memory for Felicia, remembering how she used to critique my early drafts. Perhaps if things had gone differently, she would have been there, cheering me on. But the sentiment dissolved as soon as it formed. This moment was about me, my triumph over the doubts, the heartbreak, and my own insecurities. After the ceremony, Jake found me near the refreshments, awarding me a congratulatory punch on the shoulder. We laughed, reminiscing about how uncertain everything seemed back in college. He brought up Felicia, mentioning that she occasionally asked about me through mutual acquaintances. "Guess she still wonders how you're doing," he remarked. I shrugged, swirling my drink. "I'm doing just fine," I said. And I was. Maybe part of her was curious if I had stumbled without her, if I'd remained a backup plan in someone else's life. But she'd be disappointed to learn that I'd built my own plan, one that needed no one's permission or condescension. Later that night, I returned to my tiny apartment. I set the award on my desk, letting its weight affirm my progress. Then I opened an old notebook, flipping through poems and snippets I'd written during the turmoil with Felicia. Some lines were raw with pain, others laced with anger. I felt a fondness for my younger self, who had wrestled with heartbreak but had emerged stronger. In the end, the heartbreak had served as a catalyst, sharpening my determination to succeed on my own terms. I closed the notebook gently, feeling an odd sense of closure settle over me. A few weeks passed, and life carried on. One afternoon, I received an unexpected email from Felicia's address. The subject line read, "Congratulations, and sorry." Curious, I clicked it open. In the message, Felicia congratulated me on the award, explaining that she'd followed my journey from a distance. She acknowledged how wrong she'd been to treat me like a second choice and admitted she'd been too focused on climbing the ladder to see the value of a genuine connection. She said she was proud of how far I'd come, that she'd learned her own lessons too, ones about not reducing people to mere pawns in a larger plan. She ended by wishing me well and apologizing once more for her past behavior. I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over me. There was no request for a reunion, no attempt to rekindle anything. Just an acknowledgement of her mistake and a nod to my success. It felt sincere. And that sincerity, years too late though it was, gave me a strange sense of peace. I typed a brief reply, thanking her for the congratulations, acknowledging that we'd both grown. I didn't delve into old wounds or second chances. I wished her luck on her path, clicked send, and sighed deeply. After that, I blocked her email. We had nothing more to say. Whatever sliver of remorse lingered between us was now laid to rest. Sometimes, people ask me if I regret exposing her that night at her birthday party. They wonder if perhaps there was a gentler way to handle it, a more private route. But I can't say I regret it. At the time, I needed to stand up for myself, to reject the role she'd assigned me. I needed that fiery confrontation to sever the illusions and walk away with my dignity intact. Perhaps it was dramatic, maybe even harsh, but it was also necessary. For too long, I had been the sweet, adoring partner, unprepared for the possibility that the person I cherished could see me as disposable. The shock jolted me awake, forcing me to question what I really wanted from a relationship, and from life. It also forced Felicia to confront the consequences of her manipulation. If she learned something from that public exposure, then maybe it wasn't just for my benefit. In the quiet of my new reality, I've come to understand that everyone is on their own journey, shaped by ambitions, fears, and past experiences. Felicia's mistake was to treat her relationships like business deals, picking the best option that fit her grand design. My mistake was to idolize her, ignoring the red flags that hinted at her transactional mindset. But through the wreckage, I uncovered my own strength. I learned that I am more than a fallback, more than a stepping stone. I've carved out a life that aligns with my passion for writing. My relationships now are built on mutual respect, on genuine connection, free of secret strategies or fallback positions. On occasion, I'll pass through my old university campus, drawn by nostalgia. The library steps where Felicia and I once sat, the cafe where she teased me about my mediocre coffee preferences, the lawn where we debated the best approach to a storyline or a marketing pitch. I linger there, recalling the naive optimism that colored those moments. Then I smile, because the sense of heartbreak and betrayal that once haunted me has faded into a distant echo. I am content, unburdened by the need to prove myself to someone who saw me as Plan B. My story stands on its own. It's a story of heartbreak, yes, but also of triumph, of discovering my worth and refusing to let anyone undermine it again. Years may pass, and Felicia might continue climbing her corporate ladder, forging deals, networking with influential people. I hope she finds happiness in that realm. Meanwhile, I'll be writing my next novel, exploring the intricate layers of human relationships, weaving heartbreak and resilience into pages that, hopefully, resonate with readers. Whenever I reflect on the night I exposed her in front of everyone, I recall the shock on her face, the hush that fell over the lounge, and the surge of liberation that coursed through me. That moment marked a turning point, after which I never again allowed someone to casually treat me as a second option. And for that, I have no regrets. Because at the end of the day, I am not a contingency plan. I am a person with dreams, talent, and the strength to chart my own course, no matter who attempts to diminish me. That truth is the lasting gift Felicia inadvertently gave me, a clarity about who I am and what I will no longer tolerate. It's a lesson I carry forward into every new chapter of my life, ensuring that I stand tall, unapologetic, and fully aware of my own worth. And that is why I can say with confidence, I exposed her for calling me her backup plan, and in doing so, I set us both free, she from the illusion of controlling me, and me from the chains of her indifferent ambition. The rest is history, and my story continues, richer and more genuine than ever before.